Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Personally, I was born tired and it's only gotten worse from there. In fact, until recently, I never knew what it was like to feel anything but tired. After I started fasting regularly, I saw a lot of improvement. But wait, there's more to it than just fasting, so don't take off just yet.
Where is she going? Where is she going? Come back!
I'm so sleepy I can't seem to keep awake.
First off, what is the root cause of chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia? These syndromes may seem disconnected on the surface, but they are really a set of symptoms. Just as with metabolic syndrome, the symptoms of disease can be much different depending on the individual. For many years, whistleblowers have blamed blood transfusions on spreading rare viruses through the population, including some generally found in rodents which rarely spread to humans, but can cause fatigue and many other issues when they do. Of course, almost any pathogen can spread from blood to blood contact, which opens up these rare problems that aren't tested for wider spread through the population. So you might get a virus that has little or no symptoms initially, but the antibodies against the virus lead to long-term symptoms. Epstein-Barr virus, which causes mono, is also associated with both chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia.
They suggest that an autoimmune attack has targeted the actual nerves in fibromyalgia. Wow, autoimmune attack targets actual nerves. That kind of makes sense, right? Mice were injected with purified IgG from people with fibromyalgia and also healthy individuals. Within 2 days, the mice given the IgG from the fibro patients had become hypersensitive, meaning they had a huge immune response in terms of pressure, cold, and pain. They also had reduced grip strain. The mice given healthy IgG showed no symptoms. So, the IgG in the blood of patients with fibro certainly made an impact on the health of mice. What's really interesting is that the IgG from fibro patients never made it to the spinal cord or the brain, as suggested by the theory of central sensitization. IgG mostly accumulated in the glial cells surrounding the dorsal root ganglia. So these glial cells outside the spinal cord were very active, but the glial cells inside the spinal cord were working normally.
Recently, we've been hearing a lot about long viral infections, or else never quite recovering from an infection, or even brain shrinkage from infections. This is actually not as mysterious as it is being promoted today, and it's probably not a long infection so much as the after effects of the infection. It's very common to have damage from viral infections throughout the body, because when a cell gets infected, that cell usually is killed off by the immune system. The biggest issue is when this causes damage to the immune system itself, and this is probably the main problem that we see with what's termed as post-viral syndrome. Post-viral syndrome occurs after a viral infection, as you may have guessed. You might see things like excessively high IgG antibodies, for example, but it is not something easy for a doctor to diagnose from blood work, as it can lead to a variety of symptoms and could have a variety of viruses as the root cause. There's also many other reasons you could get antibodies. Immune bodies are generally overactive to the point they have become exhausted, and the infection may be gone, but the immune system is still stuck fighting this war. This is almost like having a full body allergic reaction that simply never goes away. It also drains your immune system's ability to do its job, and the immune system has a much bigger role in your life than you might realize. Not only does it fight off infection but also cancer, it also repairs the damage of aging and is very important for all forms of healing in the body. This includes sleep, and if you don't sleep well, your immune system won't work well either, and this means you can't heal and you can't gain muscle, for example. And if your immune system isn't working well, then guess what? You can't sleep well either.
It's a vicious cycle.
You can also have damage to your organs, and this includes the thymus, which in turn is critically important to immune function. Your body can repair some of this damage, especially with the help of some interventions I'll be talking about. But again, this depends on a functional immune system, so you're not going to get very far with healing once it's damaged. Taurine deficiency is shown to cause exhaustion in T cells. One way that this is triggered is by cancers with mutations that block taurine. This allows the cancer to run wild through the body unchecked. For some reason, I've found a lot of resistance from people with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. Maybe it's just because the quote-unquote experts have just been making garbage up for decades because very little has been known until recently. A lot of people just aren't willing to try anything seemingly difficult, and they can't even be bothered to take a supplement, and if that's the case, they're just not going to go anywhere with it. I don't really care about those people, they're not worth my time to bother with. But if you've watched this far in the video, then I assume you're doing it because you actually want to look at useful possibilities that you're probably not going to hear about elsewhere. Ideally, they would do an experiment with a few dozen people giving them various taurine levels and a control group taking nothing. Then they would measure symptoms and signs of CFS and see how much benefit various doses gave. We don't have that because modern Western governments only fund science that makes profits for big business, such as mRNA research, which was wholly government funded. Your money was spent on that, and all the profits went to the people investing in these companies. You picked up the tab, but they got all the profit. Thankfully, the data is what we really care about, and scientific fact. This can be stronger even than an experimental trial. For example, we know carbohydrate consumption only spikes insulin. We don't really need an experiment to prove type 2 diabetics will do better without eating it. We also don't need hundreds of participants or complicated trial setups. This is mainly so that big drug companies can promote drugs with small effect size and to detect side effects from very dangerous compounds which can be harmful in minute quantities. And frankly, in large part to drive up the costs and stop competition from arising from small pharmaceutical companies. So it is with taurine. We know taurine is an absolute requirement for folding proteins in the body, which is required for virtually everything the immune system does. We also know that taurine is consumed by immune cell activity, and that in post-viral syndrome, the problem is largely immune cell exhaustion, making it so that the phagocytes such as macrophages and microphages simply cannot clean up the excess antibodies. We also know people today get very little taurine in the diet, much less than in days gone by, so clearly more taurine is going to help at least to some extent. You have to be careful with this kind of reasoning because it can lead to so-called bro science. You can only reason this way with very hard facts, and even then you can't tell just how much improvement may occur. However, it would be silly to avoid taurine as it's very cheap and very easy to take. I take 6 grams a day, and you can find links to what I take and a description of how I take it in the description of the video. While we don't have specific trials for taurine, there's tons of evidence that mitochondrial dysfunction is a big issue in CFS and in fibromyalgia. I ran across many studies showing that relief could be gained by taking supplements and nutrients that helped in this area, which means that other ways of supporting mitochondria and your natural antioxidant system should also yield relief. This includes taurine, glycine, bilberry, zinc orotate, L-cysteine, and practically everything else listed in the description of the video, so I'm not going to go over it all and how it does that. These are all supplements and nutrients that will help most people, but will be particularly important for these situations. They could all be termed anti-aging too. Liver is also going to do a great deal to help with energy and help with regenerating the immune system. So I would try to get some liver in every week if you're suffering from these problems. And you really can't build anything in the body without all of the nutrients that liver has in it, such as the orotic acid and many more things, B vitamins and much more. So try and get some liver in if you possibly can. Likewise, vitamin D and K2 are required for many immune system operations. People are also generally deficient in them today. I supplement vitamin D and K2 in powder form once a week. This makes it easier to measure out doses because you only need tiny amounts of pure powder on a day-to-day basis. And this is okay because your body stores these fat-soluble vitamins very well. Confined cows on a grain diet really don't produce dairy or beef that has much vitamin D or K2, so this is a very good idea for most people today. I tend to talk about subjects that doctors either don't know about or don't care about, especially fasting, but these mainstream solutions can also help a lot of people. It tends to be a giant help for some people, but don't expect miracles if you already get adequate amounts. Keep in mind though, the more active your immune system is, the more your immune cells will consume, so you may have an elevated need for both of them. So if you have a serious problem like cancer or post-viral syndrome, your body can run through heroic amounts of vitamin D, for example, which it has to if it's going to perform heroic actions.
Do you know who I am? Have you any idea how many anonymous henchmen I've killed over the years? And look at you, you haven't even got a name tag. You've got no chance. Why don't you just fall down? Go on, son.
Phototherapy or photobiomodulation is shown to be very helpful in fibromyalgia. It's also shown to do a great deal for the immune system itself and for your mitochondria. Unlike taurine, this has been directly tested in fibromyalgia, so you can be very confident you will see improvement. I'm a big believer in daily red light and near-infrared therapy. This has improved my skin quality and helped heal wounds and sores very quickly. And most importantly for me, it had an amazing effect in healing my injured shoulder. Recently, my 86-year-old father fell and injured his knee and his shoulder, and he was in agony for a week. He is usually resistant to my suggestions, but this time he gave it a try. He was absolutely amazed that he got immediate pain relief, and after a week he was walking and driving perfectly normally again.
You're the best evil son an evil dad could ever ask for.
I love you, Dad. I love you, son.
Unfortunately, he stopped after that, which is a shame because its effects on injuries are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the benefits of photobiomodulation. It also helps for metabolic health and shifts cells from the harmful Warburg effect and other forms of fermentation into proper oxidative phosphorylation as energy production, which could help prevent cancer. This in turn triggers stem cells to deploy and replicate, which could help with everything from regenerating your thymus to helping you keep your hair young and properly colored so you don't age before your time.
Hey, Pop. Hey, Scotty. How you been, sport? Whoa!
When it comes to the immune system, nothing is going to help more than fasting. This is especially true of post-viral syndrome because it's going to reset the immune system to a normal state and stop the rampant immune overreaction that's destroying your whole body. There are some caveats though, especially when it comes to nutrition. You don't need lots of food on your eating days to fast, but you must provide your body with proper nutrition as discussed earlier, or your immune system simply can't repair anything. Your immune cells consume taurine and vitamin D and vitamin K2 to perform the actions of phagocytosis and other things necessary to do the job of healing and repairing the body. and this is especially important for people with big issues. That is the main reason for the supplements I have in the description of the video, but many of them are also helpful for the liver. This is also very important for fasting, and without a functional liver, your hormones simply can't work properly. You also can't filter out estrogen from the blood, which is a big problem when it becomes damaged over time. And you also can't activate growth hormone, which is done in the liver. And that means it can't be used by the body to actually regenerate anything. So while just about everyone can fast, it is very important for people with big issues to take the supplements, especially when you have chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia. This is also important for people with damage from safe and effective sources. Fasting has a myriad of benefits for the immune system. First off, a single 72-hour fast regenerates about 1/3 of your white blood cells. This is very important as they are going to be damaged or exhausted cells when you're going through something like post-viral syndrome. You will now have brand new cells that work correctly. This also means your macrophages will stop NAD+ by constantly triggering the CD38 enzyme because they became stuck in this pattern as they age. Fasting just 72 hours also reduces your B cells by half. These are the cells that spew out antibodies such as the IgG4 antibodies that doctors today are hilariously baffled by for some reason. This is a big problem in post-viral syndrome and in autoimmune diseases. A single fast can reduce your symptoms by half because it gets rid of half of these B cells, and each successive fast will remove half of whatever's left. This gets rid of excessive levels of B cells and antibodies, but rest assured, if the threat truly returns, your body can always make more, so you won't lose the immunity in this manner. In fact, any further antibodies will always be better than the initial one. Fasting also releases new stem cells, which is obviously important for organ regeneration, but it's also important for the creation of T cells in the body. Adults tend to make T cells rarely, if at all. This is a process in the thymus that requires hundreds of stem cells to train one perfect T cell. T cells are the generals of the immune system that tell the body what to do, and without them the immune system is unable to respond to threats, including cancer, and is also unable to damp down autoimmune reactions. Like land, your body doesn't usually make much more of it, but fasting can break this rule, and occasional extended fasting would have happened periodically before modern times, especially in the winter months, so I believe this is just a natural part of what your body is supposed to be doing all the time. The thymus tends to wither and degenerate as we age, and that means it can't perform these functions at all. Thankfully, fasting also addresses this issue. Growth hormone skyrockets while you fast, and when you break the fast, this will regenerate your thymus and also many other organs. This is one of the reasons why, while it may be tempting to do a very, very long fast to try and get over your issues, it's generally better to stick to the 72 to 96 hour fast and just do more of those, because the regeneration phase is just as important as the actual fasting. That's where the healing, as most people think of it, is actually occurring. Fasting also stimulates phagocytosis, which is the process the body uses to get rid of plaque, scars, and many other problems. This includes removing unneeded antibodies circulating in the body or attached to cells. It also gets rid of damaged glycated proteins, which lead to wrinkles in the skin and to disease in many of your organs, especially the kidneys. It also stimulates autophagy, which makes your immune cells much healthier. Fasting also stimulates the endocannabinoid receptors in the body to reduce pain and anxiety. No need for expensive CBD oil or PEA supplements, which are very costly and have side effects, and often they don't really work that well because they may be underdosed or fake. Fasting also reduces insulin a great deal in just 24 hours, increasing insulin sensitivity and opening the blood vessels and lowering blood pressure. Diabetics basically have issues with healing due to narrowed capillaries, and this inhibits the action of the immune system, but fasting quickly reduces this and allows the macrophages to get to where they're needed and clean up the damaged cells and debris. Fasting also greatly aids in mitochondrial function, which not only increases the burning of fat and increases your basal metabolic rate, but also helps you feel energetic and improves your mood. Fasting also reduces neuroinflammation, which improves your mood even more and helps in virtually all mental illness. Mitochondrial function also staves off dementia by rescuing delicate neurons from cell death. Fasting also kills off senescent cells, which is important because these cells negatively affect immune system function and cause immune bodies to waste their resources instead of fighting disease and repairing damage in the body. In fact, this could be said to be a main driver of aging, but it's totally reversible through fasting.
Cool.
There's probably some problem somewhere that fasting won't help with, but for most health problems it is surprisingly helpful, and it is particularly true of issues with the post-viral syndrome root cause, and also with other autoimmune related conditions. This includes chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, which has recently been proven to be symptoms of post-viral syndrome. That's because fasting is the only thing you can do to truly repair the immune system itself, and without repairing and resetting the immune system, these problems simply can't resolve. Fasting can reduce harmful autoimmune reactions by removing antibodies quickly and give long-term relief from these problems, and it removes the B cells that are creating them, but in a way that doesn't harm your ability to fight infections. Phototherapy can also help with these issues and is particularly helpful for pain. While relatively healthy people can fast and get good results with fasting, even without supplements or changing nutrition, nutrition and supplements are going to be critical for people in this situation because the body uses them up quickly when the immune system has been overactive for a long period of time. For that matter, most people should probably take taurine and glycine supplements due to deficiency in the modern diet, even for those who only eat meat. But for people in this situation, the whole supplement list is going to help a great deal in getting back on track. If I had this issue, I would start with the supplements for a week or two, then do as many 72 to 96 hour fasts as I possibly could, with at least an equal amount of time between each new fast. While healthy people can pretty much fast back to back forever, I would not strain myself too much too quickly if I had one of these very serious conditions. You could apply this pattern to a lot of serious problems that can't be remedied through normal means, and you would likely be surprised at the benefit. I've had viewers tell me about reversing their heart failure, liver disease, gout, and much more. Not to mention weight loss, back pain, sciatica, which I also reversed myself, high blood pressure, which is the reason that I got into making fasting videos, and on and on. On the other hand, you can throw yourself on the mercy of the medical system and see how far that gets you with these hard to deal with issues.
Get along. Scotty! 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 Take it down a notch. It's creeping a bit.